His car was parked in an odd way. The spare bedroom door where the gun was housed was not in its place. I could not find him anywhere. I called friends. I called family. No one had seen him. I had a friend come over and we went to search for him. She found him in the woods outside of our house. He was dead with a gun at his feet. I immediately thought that an intruder had come into our home and he was protecting our home and our property. I couldn't imagine that he had killed himself. That was unimaginable to me. The coroner came and confirmed that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. I was devastated. I was confused. I was so unimaginably, I could not understand what had happened. He was my best friend. He was my partner. He was my lover. He was my everything. And the wake of his death, he left his sons, his friends, and his family in a devastated and confused state. Even though I had been working with grieving children and their families for the past 3 years before his death, I didn't know many things about suicide and the warning signs for suicide. Had I known them then, maybe he would still be alive today. I didn't know that sleep deprivation could be a risk factor for suicide. I didn't know that being a middle-aged white man was a risk factor. I didn't know that physical pain was a risk factor. I didn't know that mixing painkillers and alcohol was a risk factor. I didn't know that the loss of a job and feeling too old to get hired again was a risk factor. I didn't know that having a gun in your home was a risk factor. I didn't know how helpless and what a burden he felt. I didn't know that him saying, "I'll never be an old man," was a risk factor. I didn't know that losing interest in the things that provided such joy was a risk factor. I didn't know how much pain he was in. Wow, the gods are saying it's time to go. So I just, as a result of that, I've spent the last 22 years working to prevent suicide in every way I can. I'm involved with the Dougy Center, as I said before, working with children and families who've had a suicide death. I work for the Suicide Bereavement Support Organization that helps people after a suicide death, and I'm very involved locally and nationally with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, helping to make a path for us to, as we said, reduce the rate of suicide by 20% by the year 2025. And I hope that by hearing this story, we will all begin to learn what the warning signs are for suicide and be able to help the people around you and help yourself if necessary to prevent suicide. So thank you.